Hey guys, this is Thomas over here, nursemoneytalk.com, and in this video, I'm going to give you some tips that I think that will help you orient a new nurse just that much better. All right. So before I get into that, if you haven't already subscribed, I want to go ahead and invite you to hit that subscribe button on this channel. I talk about all things related to nursing student, and of course, nurse life. Let's go ahead and get started. I will say that I am pretty passionate when it comes to orienting new nurses and orienting, or just in general, like orienting nurses that are new to the department, right, or to any department that I'm working in. Now, ironically, I generally have not been a huge fan of precepting, but that is because, like, to me, I think departments make it very difficult when it comes on the nurse that's precepting, right? You know, at times you're given the exact same patient load. Sometimes you're actually even given more depending on who's doing staffing. And so there's the whole host of other like issues that I don't like about the whole precepting and how departments normally do it. And I do have a video that I'll put up there that where I talk about more about some of the issues that I don't like about precepting nurses in a department. But there's, to me, like, as for the passionate part, it's because I think that I've been there. I've been there at a bad preceptor, and it made my time at that department really, really bad, right? Even as when I was a new nurse, I got precepted poorly. And it honestly left a really bad taste in my mouth about about that department. And ultimately, I know that that's the reason, one of the reasons why many nurses end up leaving a department. And so to me, when somebody comes in, I want them to get as good of a training as possible. I want them to feel welcomed onto the unit and to be set up for success, because one, that's just what I would want if that was me. But on the other hand, in a more selfish type of way as well, it also benefits me because the more people that are there, that just means ultimately that'll be less work, and that's put on my shoulders, especially if you've ever worked a unit where it just seems like it's just short staffed nonstop. So let's go ahead and dive in, right? The first thing that I really think you should do, if you are orienting new nurses or any nurse, right? I'll probably say new nurses, but this could pretty much be used even for an experienced nurse who just happens to be coming to your department, right? Starting brand new at your department. And so the first thing I would recommend is to make sure to set clear goals, right? Now, many departments will kind of help you out with this because they'll have like a check sheet of competencies, if you will, that you'll have to know and have to be able to check off that either the nurse you're orienting has either demonstrated that skill or you've gone through it and whatnot. So that, I think that can kind of help guide that. But even still, just like in a way, making like maybe like a mini goal for the day. So what do you want to cover for that day or for that week? So an example might be for your first day, you might have a goal to, well, we're going to orient the nurse to the unit. And that could be, we're going to show them where all the supplies are kept. We're going to let them know the unit routine, tell them what to expect, what to expect during doctor's rounds. When do the doctors typically round? Show them how, you might usually handle medication rounds. And, if there's any important policies and procedures, make sure they read those, or if anything else, like making sure that they know how to find that. And I think that can really help ensure that nothing's missed and that there's kind of like a structure to what you guys are doing, right? So number two is to be empathetic, right? So if you think about what empathy is, it's defined as showing an ability to understand and share in the feelings of another, right? And for a nurse that's coming in, like you should be able to relate and share in the feelings of that nurse, right? Because you were there once, right? If you're a nurse precepting another nurse on a unit, you've already been there. So you need to get in the habit of reflecting, right, on what that on what your experiences was like during that point and what that student might be going through, right? And one thing to note about kind of like this being empathetic is that at times, like I think sharing your maybe almost kind of like your own personal journey. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, I think, and maybe like you're with a student that might not care as much about that. I mean, I don't know, but I think at times sharing your own personal journey whenever it's applicable can help that orientee kind of feel more like they're not going through this alone. Number three is to try to be patient, right? And that's going to be hard. If you've watched the previous video I've had on stuff like this, it's going to be hard because to try to be patient when you'll have the same patient load or more and you're trying to kind of hurry things along. And then there's a temptation to then forget about what it was like when you were a student and what that struggle is like. Or you could run into a situation where maybe you have, I think I said student, but I meant like a new nurse. But you could be in a situation where like you have a new nurse that it's just taking them a little bit longer, right? And that happens. Not everybody is going to work at the same pace. And so if you run into situations like that, I think instead of getting impatient, just try to figure out what the issue might be. Is it just that it's taking this person a little bit longer? Is it just like that they're slower? Maybe they're not slow. Maybe you're really quick at it and they're just moving at a normal pace for most people. So that's something to keep in mind depending on what we're talking about. The other thing could be that maybe there's something about the process or the way you have them doing something that is just not like they're not able to get with that flow. So if it's something that you can change up a little bit and it's not against like a policy or a safety issue or whatever, then just kind of change it up a little bit. And that could be a big way to kind of to help them speed things up. The next thing is to really try to encourage questions, right? A lot of the questions you're going to get, they might seem really basic. Like if you've been working in, I don't know, like if you've been working in the ICU for like 15 years, 20 years, you have somebody freshly graduated and they're starting in the ICU, right? And the questions they're going to ask you, they're going to seem super basic to you. It just is. Like you've been doing this for like years. Like you're gonna be on another level. This is where that empathy and trying to empathize with where that student is at. So don't make them feel dumb or silly that they asked a question. Encourage the questions. Try to answer it to as best as you as best as you can. Because I think by going back to the goal is to get this nurse trained as well as possible because that ultimately helps you out. Nurses who ask questions, they're probably more engaged in the work and they're probably thinking very critically about it. And they're probably learning more too, all of which are going to be good qualities and good things that you're going to be looking for from a nurse that's going to be working in your unit or department. The next thing is to try to set rules and expectations. This could kind of vary a little bit, but one of the thing I was thinking about this was just try to be cordial and friendly, right? Like you don't have to be friends, like best friends with this person. You don't even have to give them like your cell phone or anything like that. Have them like texting you or whatever. You can set those boundaries, But the big thing is to try to be as cordial as possible. And if you have any rules and expectations or whatever, you can set that. Like if, for instance, if you happen to be the person who like you don't hang out with anybody from that you work with, like you'll be cool, you'll be cordial, you'll be respectful, but that's just not you. You don't have to make that you don't have to necessarily make an exception with them if you don't want to, but in a very clear and kind way, you need to set those rules and expectations, right? The sixth one is don't assume that the person knows something, right? I think like this, because at times you might not know what that person doesn't know, right? And so I think this is pretty easy when it comes to like new grads. You just assume you don't know jack squat. But if it's somebody who has, supposedly some years of experience, right? That could be harder to kind of gauge where they're at. So one thing that I would recommend is if you don't know, I would just ask. You could just take I'm gonna, since I'm precepting you, I'm gonna explain everything. I'm gonna show everything once. And then afterwards, if you're good with that, then I'll let you keep doing it, even if it's a nurse that has experience. And so this could just go back to just kind of setting those rules and expectations. But a lot of it when it comes to like this, where are they at in terms of gaps of knowledge? A lot of that can be fixed with just communicating, right? The seventh one is to make sure that you tell them about the unit's culture, right? So I think every department, every facility, whatever, they have their own culture. They have rules and policies, but those are the easy parts. But they also have like their unwritten rules, right? These are the ones that might not be so obvious um, when somebody's coming to the department. So this could be as simple as the doctor that's a jerk. This is the nurse that's difficult to work with and has a bad temper. This nurse or this doctor, this janitor, this whatever. This could also fall into like who are the informal leaders, right? Like you could have a situation where okay, you have a nurse manager by title, but there's like these one or two other nurses who happen to have been here for a really long time. They're staff nurses, but they are the quote unquote power brokers. They are the informal leaders. So these are all really good things that I think a new nurse or a nurse that's just showing up to your unit really needs to know. Like, and as far as like the unit culture, I would also kind of throw in there maybe like some hacks, right? Like some hacks that are ways to get around the more annoying things that that's going on in your department or that particular facility. And I'll just leave it at that. Number 8 is to really look at daily reflections, right? Practicing daily reflections. And this could just be like maybe at the end of the day. So we'll just like sit down or at the end of the shift, close to the end of the shift somewhere. I guess you could also do this like at the end of the week. We'll just sit down and we'll talk about just kind of like how's the day going? What did you learn? What do you have questions on? Reviewing anything positive or negative that happened, that went wrong. These are, I think, another great way to kind of gauge like gaps in knowledge, while at the same time encouraging your orientee to ask questions, right? Encouraging them to ask questions, and that more or less instilling and reinforcing that you are there to kind of help guide them along on this journey. Number 9 is look at maybe like a trusted model for teaching, right? One example, which is one that I've already covered early on, is just kind of this Since orientation is going to be for 12 weeks, I'm the one that's going to be with you for the full 12 weeks. And so I'm going to do everything from we'll see one, we'll do one, and then we'll teach one as well. So you're going to see me do something. I'll explain it and go over whatever. We're going to do one, and then you're going to teach as well. You're going to walk somebody else through it. And so, and the reason for that is one, it gives kind of structure. And two, it's always been said that you can't really teach unless if you understand it well yourself. And one of the things I found from my experiences, and especially this goes back to even when I was in school, is that teaching was the absolute best way for me to really check how much I knew something. And it was also a good way for me to reinforce what I already knew. So number 10 is really looking at asking for feedback, right? So this could be feedback in the sense of like just encouraging the nurse that you're orienting to critique how you're doing in terms of teaching them, right? Like, is there something that I'm doing that's working, not working? Am I going too quick for you? Am I going too slow for you, right? So can we speed up what we're doing? This is really a good way to kind of, so for you to get feedback in your own teaching styles, and I think in a lot of ways you can learn so much as well from this experience. And I know that in many of the orientations that I've been through, or I say in many of the nurses that I have oriented or taught or been one of the ones helping to precept the nurse, that there's always opportunities and room for me to learn myself. So that's all I got in this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment sections below. If you have any other tips that you think that I missed, but I should have had, make sure to let us know in the comment sections below. Don't forget to look in the descriptions of the video. I have some helpful resources in there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you very soon in that next video.